Shedeur Sanders was one of the biggest winners from Week 14. We'll dive into his dynasty value next.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us the #1 sports podcast network. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this football season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. He is the Fantasy Football Hall of Famer, Michael Fabiano, and today's show, we are taking a look at the biggest winners and losers from Week 14. We're going to talk about Jayden Daniels. We're going to talk about Bijan Robinson. We're going to talk about some things that drive Fabs absolutely nuts. But let's talk about some of the biggest winners from Week 14, and we have to start with Shedeur Sanders, who played really well for the Browns. Now, Cleveland ultimately didn't end up winning, and I know a lot of Browns fans are happy about that. But what did you see from Shedeur in Week 14?
I mean, I saw a guy who scored the second most fantasy points among quarterbacks in the entire week going into Monday night. Raise your hand if you started Shedeur Sanders. Yeah, I don't think so. 364, 4 total touchdowns, over 33 fantasy points. I mean, he had scored fewer than 22 combined points in his last 2 starts. So am I chasing the points here? I mean, probably not. You got the Bears coming up next. I don't know if you're starting Shedeur Sanders outside of a super flex, but I think long-term, at least this shows that, he's got this in him. Now, remember, he was a first-round projected pick until I don't know what happened, and he ended up falling all the way into round 5. And the Browns quarterback situation is very much up in the air for next season. Deshaun Watson is probably going to be back. I don't know. That contract has kind of got the Browns hamstrung a bit.
Yeah.
Dylan Gabriel will be in a competition and Sanders will be in the competition. And so whatever Sanders does well statistically right now is going to go a long way into allowing him a chance to start next year. So if you've got him in Dynasty, if you continue to see some of these good stat lines from Sanders, I mean, there's nothing but good that can happen from that, Marcus.
I thought he looked the most comfortable that he has all season long, and that was without several starting offensive linemen. Their center, Ethan Posick, went down in the first quarter with an Achilles injury. They've had issues with their tackles all year. And this Titans defense, if they've got some dudes up front that can be difference makers, and I thought Shedeur played really well. Having said all that, I think this has done is buy him the last 4 games. There's just no way that they go back to Dylan Gabriel, over the final month. So he's going to get the next 4 games.
I agree.
Showcase his talent. I still think the Browns are going to draft a quarterback in round 1 if possible, and then we'll see what happens with Shedeur. But again, if you can have 2 or 3 more performances like this, maybe they do forego past, drafting a quarterback and let Shedeur have 1 more year before making a decision.
I think if you have him in Dynasty, the only thing that you want is for him to have a chance to start next season, whether or not that's in Cleveland or someplace else.
All right, let's talk about some other winners from Week 14. How about RJ Harvey? I thought he looked really good against the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, 6 catches, 100 total yards, 22 fantasy points. He has scored 22 plus in 2 straight games without J.K. Dobbins. And so this is kind of what we were hoping for, right? We may, at the end of this season, call RJ Harvey a league winner because Dobbins went down. Harvey took over a bigger role. He's been very good the last couple of weeks. The Raiders defense is pretty bad. So he was able to take advantage and exploit that defense. And so, I mean, now he's locked into your lineup for the rest of the season. And next season, maybe if this sort of success continues, it maybe behooves the Broncos not to draft or sign someone who will compete with Harvey, but complement him instead.
Yeah, I always think there's going to be another running back there just because Sean Payton loves running back by committee approaches. But we're getting to the point where I think Harvey is somebody that you have to play at least as a flex every single week. And again, I thought he looked really good. There was a play where they threw him a screen. He got hit like 4 yards in the backfield, was able to get upfield, make a play for a first down. You can see he's starting to have more confidence. And it's clear that Sean Payton is trusting him more. So it's really hard not to like RJ Harvey for this, final 3 weeks, 4 weeks of the NFL season.
Yeah, no question about that. Not only in redrafts as your playoffs are starting. And by the way, if you made the playoffs, little golf clap for everybody out there.
There you go.
And this also bodes well for next season.
Let's talk about Harold Fannin. I should have done this when we were talking about the Browns, but continues to have a really nice rookie season. He had an incredible touchdown grab in this one. David Njoku got banged up on a touchdown, actually, did not come back in the game. But Harold Fannin is somebody that I'm really excited about moving forward. And I will say this, I think it depends on if Kevin Stefanski is back in Cleveland, because it's clear that he just loves Harold Fannin. If we see a new head coach, a new play caller, I don't know what to think.
Well, I think we've talked about this, right? I mean, Fannin Jr., I know you don't love him like talent-wise, but, he's still a guy who is going to potentially be the number one tight end for the Browns next year. David Njoku is going into a contract year. And he also got hurt, as you mentioned, in that game against the Titans with a knee injury, didn't return. Who knows where he ends up, but if the Browns ultimately let David Njoku walk, and I don't know why they wouldn't, because I don't know that they need to pay him because they have Fannin. Harold Fannin Jr. could end up being one of the top 12 tight ends in fantasy football, not only next season, but moving forward. And, regardless of who the quarterback's going to be, I think they're going to throw the ball to the tight ends. They always love to do that. Again, that depends on whether or not Stefanski returns as the head coach, as Marcus mentioned. But I think the sky is the limit for this kid in a best case scenario. And I don't see any reason why the Browns would bring Njoku back where they can keep Harold Fannin and he'll be their tight end one. And in my early 2026 rankings brain, I can already see Fannin Jr. being in the top 10 or 12.
By the way, that's Matt that doesn't like Harold Fannin. I'm a big Harold Fannin.
Oh, okay.
That's all right. That's all right. I just want to clear the air here. It is interesting the way they use it.
I'm apologizing.
That's fine. They try to like manufacture touches for him, and there's just very few tight ends in the league that get these kind of, I call them like layup touches. But Harold Fannin's getting them, and now he's getting more involved in the regular drop back passing game. He's somebody that I'm absolutely buying moving forward. One other player that we need to talk about, T. Higgins. He got banged up in this game a couple different times. He was coming back from a concussion. He missed last week. But whenever he's healthy and Joe Burrow is on the field, man, Fabs, he's performing like a low-end wide receiver one.
Right. Well, I mean, even when Flacco was the quarterback too, like, you look at this past game, 2 touchdowns, over 27 fantasy points. He has scored 15 plus points in 3 of his last 4, and he's the wide receiver 8 since week 7.
Yeah.
So with Flacco, with Burrow, I mean, he was doing pretty well. What's crazy is that in the first 6 weeks, when they had a mess, he was a wide receiver 47. So he's significantly increased. And now, and this is going to be something that I'll talk about in the final segment of the program, because something happened in one of my leagues that surrounds T. Higgins that really just pisses me off. But T. Higgins is not a dude that you take out of your lineup. I mean, when Joe Burrow is the quarterback, you start him every single week.
100%. And T. Higgins was talking about yesterday, why was he playing in that game after suffering a concussion? And he just loves playing football, and he loves playing with Joe Burrow. He's locked up long-term in Cincinnati with both these guys going into the 2026 season healthy. I think we could see T. Higgins right back to being a top 15 dynasty receiver. So bye. Let's talk about some players who did not perform to expectations in week 14. And we have to talk about Jayden Daniels and his dynasty value, because now things are getting a little scary. We'll talk about that and more next. This episode is brought to you by Aura Frames. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every single time. It's not just something that you wrap. It's a way to share memories, because Aura isn't your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before gifting it, so when they plug it in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles. We gave one to my mother-in-law a couple weeks ago. Absolutely loved it. She gets pictures of her grandbabies all day long. She has it sitting right in her living room. It's the absolute best present to give to a loved one this holiday season, because it will actually get used and it won't be thrown just in some junk drawer where you forget about it. So for a limited time only, Save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver mat frames, named #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. That is AURA frames.com, promo code LOCKEDON. The deal is exclusive to Locked On listeners, and the frames sell out incredibly fast. So order yours now and get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us the first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day, but now why don't you take it to the next level and go ad-free? Join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On Dynasty with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and so much more for only $5 a month or $50 a year. Just go to lockedondynasty.supercast.com to get this awesome deal. And you can make sure you can check the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, Fabs, let's talk about some week 14 losers. I want to start with Jayden Daniels, who was not playing well before he got injured, but threw an interception, landed on his elbow, did not return to the game. Dan Quinn said it was precautionary. I don't believe him.
I don't know why they're playing him at this point. I don't know why they bring him back. If they do, the Commanders are a dumpster fire right now. They're not going anywhere, which is crazy to think because this team was in the NFC Championship game not too long ago. But this is concerning if you have Jayden Daniels, because you are having nightmares of a reoccurring Robert Griffin III scenario, right? You know, this year, Daniels had a knee sprain in week 2. Then he missed a couple of games. Then he had a hamstring strain in week 7. He missed a game. Then he dislocated his elbow and missed multiple games. And now he aggravated that injury. Like, this guy had what I would call a magical rookie season, much like Robert Griffin III had a magical rookie season. And after that, everything fell apart because of injuries. And the Commanders are, again, they're going nowhere. It behooves them to just keep Daniels on the bench the rest of the season, play Marcus Mariota. He's been fine. You know, he hasn't been terrible at all. It's not like, you know, he's one of these backup quarterbacks like the Jets had to play yesterday. Ugh. But
Brady Cook.
I will say this. I'm a little concerned about Jayden Daniels from a dynasty perspective. And if you had told me that I would say that sentence a year ago at this time, you would have probably I wouldn't have believed you because he was just so dynamic and so good. But this is what happens, man. It just takes 1 year for even the best and most attractive young quarterbacks fantasy value to absolutely just kind of not go in the tank, but certainly do a 180 in the wrong direction.
I remember back in March when Kate and I were doing the rookie profiles, March of 2024, and we had to give our player comps for Jayden Daniels, and mine was Johnny Knoxville from the Jackass movies. And the reason why is he is so dynamic, but he has no regard for his body at all. And I just don't think he knows when to say no on some of these kind of plays. Like, there's no reason you throw an interception. You don't need to be trying to chase it down, making a tackle. You're already banged up, and he puts himself into harm's way and re-aggravates that elbow injury. He's so frail. He's tall. He's skinny. He doesn't have a lot of muscle on him. And I just worry that at some point these hits are going to start really piling up to the point that it takes away from his athleticism. I think a good example is Lamar Jackson has done a really good job of avoiding big hits in Baltimore, like for the most part of his career. But you're already starting to see some of these nagging injuries just take away all of his explosiveness. I wonder if we're going to get there way quicker with Jayden Daniels, who's already 24. He's going to be 25 here in a few months. I'm concerned. I'm really, really concerned.
Yeah, me too. If you're an optimist, and I am not typically, you could maybe try and buy low on Jayden Daniels, but in Dynasty, because he is still very young, and we know that, running with the football as a quarterback is a massive advantage from a fantasy perspective. But I do have my concerns that durability and issues with durability could haunt Jayden Daniels throughout his NFL career.
By the way, he turns 25 later this month, so not in a couple months later this month. Not that it's a big deal, but just worth pointing out. Let's talk about some other losers from Week 14. I mean, Ashton Genti, at this point, you're just waiting until next year. If you have Ashton Genti on your team, you're probably not in the fantasy football playoffs. This was a bad matchup. You probably had to start him. But I think you're just hoping for an entire overhaul of this Raiders organization.
So, folks, there's what we like to call a short over on our YouTube channel. And I'll typically post a few videos there a week. And this week I had done one on the 5 big names who could bust. Those 5 names were Patrick Mahomes, Ashton Genti, Justin Jefferson, Egbuka, and I believe the 5th was not a bust. It was Lamar Jackson, who ended up having a good game. But Ashton Genti is not
fantasy, but not real game. Yeah, but go ahead.
Ashton Genti is not what we had hoped he was going to be as a rookie. He is playing in a lousy offense. He is playing with a lousy franchise. We drafted him to be our dude, like our RB1, a guy who's going to give you 15, 16, 17 points per game minimum. And that has not happened. He's failed to score more than 12.1 points in 3 of his last 4 games. He only had 12 touches in that game yesterday, 5.8 fantasy points. His yards per carry is gross. And I don't think that this is a result of Ashton Genti not being the same back he was at Boise State. I think this is a result of Raiders, bad offensive line, bad quarterback. And I have concerns about Genti's dynasty value moving forward, playing for this team, because obviously he's under the Raiders' control for the next several years. And unless they get their act together, and by the way, I don't know what was going on with that field goal at the end of the game, but that is going to be the conspiracy theorists' just dream come true in terms of the NFL and what they do or don't do when it comes to wagering. I don't understand any of what happened at the end of that game. And I don't understand how the Raiders could have drafted a player this high at the running back position and fail him week in and week out.
I'm a firm believer in that talent will eventually win out. So I do think Genti is going to be fine, but I think for rookie running backs or young running backs, the situation a lot of times matters more than talent, at least early on. And this is
you're 100% right.
Right. You get these games where you're behind. There's not a lot of plays. You're, in passing situations. If you have a running back who's a really good receiver, a lot of times that can actually help you. And Genti's not a poor receiver by any means, but his strength is his ability to run the ball between the tackles. And the Raiders have just not had really any games this year with positive game scripts. Again, you're just waiting for 2026, hoping they find a quarterback, hoping they find a new coach. I don't think Pete Carroll is the guy. They've got to figure out their offensive line. And now I am wondering, like from a dynasty perspective, Ashton Genti going into the month of November was RB4. At one point, he was all the way up to RB2. But I'm starting to look at some other guys like James Cook, Quinshon Judkins, Devon Achane, Bucky Irving, O'Marion Hampton.
Yep.
And thinking, man, maybe all these guys should be ahead of Genti.
How many times in the NFL do we see a player falter with the team that drafted him only to go and thrive someplace else?
Sure.
Marcus is 100% on point there. Yeah. You go to a team and the franchise is a dumpster fire and things just go bad. And that's what you're seeing with the Raiders. I mean, not for nothing. This has been going on with the Raiders for a long, long time. Yeah. So as much as I liked the landing spot because of the opportunity, because they didn't have a running back he would have to compete with, because they were changing things up, it has gone worse than I thought that it could possibly go.
I was going to use the Josh Jacobs example of him thriving in Green Bay, but that's also not really fair because Jacobs did have a year.
He was pretty good in Vegas.
Yeah, he led the NFL in rushing yards and yards from scrimmage with the Raiders, but that was also a much more stable situation, right? They had a better quarterback with Derek Carr. The offensive line was significantly better. I think that just shows how bad things have gotten right now in Las Vegas.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with you. Yep.
Let's do 2 receivers really quickly. Justin Jefferson at Egbuka. Egbuka has been awful. He dropped the touchdown in the end zone. He just doesn't look healthy from that hamstring injury. And then Justin Jefferson, it's more of the same. J.J. McCarthy actually didn't have that bad of a game, but Justin Jefferson did.
Yeah, and 3.1 points from Justin Jefferson. I mean, he has scored 12.3 points in his last 3 games, not each game combined. Since week 10, he's the wide receiver 54. That is an abject tragedy.
Yeah, but the good thing is, Fabs, if you happen to make the playoffs, I don't know how you did with Justin Jefferson on your lineup.
Yeah, I know you got Dallas coming up, but Marcus, the Commanders are not any good. Their defense is not any good. They had given it up to wide receivers, and Jefferson couldn't do anything against them because J.J. McCarthy's terrible. He doesn't throw the ball downfield. Who had success yesterday? the tight ends, right? Hawkinson scored a touchdown. Oliver scored a couple of touchdowns. The Waters, Jordan Addison didn't have a good game at all. And so, like, yeah, it's Dallas coming up next. And, like, it really makes it hard to, say Justin Jefferson. But, I mean, geez Louise, like, it's terrible. And I don't care if McCarthy had a good fantasy score. And he did. Justin Jefferson is doing what I need him to get Justin Jefferson back to being that dude. I need Jordan Addison to be a 14, 15 point per game guy. It's never going to happen with JJ McCarthy. The Vikings should spin it any way they want. The Commanders are a bad team. And McCarthy, even though he had 3 touchdowns, they're not helping my fantasy team. How many dudes started Josh Oliver this week? I mean, nobody. And then Egbuka, we warned you about this, right? Yeah. Not only is he struggling, and he did drop a touchdown. I think it might have come in a little bit hot, and it was raining, but still, he should have caught it. I think he should have caught it, but he's failed to score more than 9.8 points in 4 straight games in 7 of his last 8. He's the wide receiver 41 since week 6. And the Saints defense is playing really well right now in the pass defense. They are playing very well. Jalen Waddle did nothing against them the week before. No. Egbuka did nothing. None of the Buccaneers receivers really did anything. Chris Godwin led the team in receiving yards. He wasn't great. It was kind of mid. And so now, Egbuka's not a guy you can play. And if Mike Evans comes back, which it looks like he's getting close and they need him because they just got beat by a team that had 2 wins, I fear that Egbuka's value is going to tank the rest of the season. It kind of already has, but buy low on him in Dynasty.
Yeah.
Do it now.
That's
all exactly day long. Yeah. Buy low.
I would be willing to pay top 12, top 13 prices for Egbuka this offseason. So, yes, he's probably somebody that you don't feel great about starting the rest of this year, but buy low on him absolutely in Dynasty. All right, let's talk about some other things that made Fabs upset in Week 14, including Bijan Robinson's ineffectiveness. We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. But that's where the Game Time app is so clutch. It finally gives fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. And with Game Time, you can track prices drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment that they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands, and it makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You just pull up the app, and the layout makes it so simple to scroll through the matchups and compare seat views. Pick a game, tap a section, and you can have your seats locked in within minutes. So take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets in every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go download Game Time today. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. But that's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. And with FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is the best because when the game starts to shift, when a receiver gets hot or maybe a defense really tightens things up, like we saw last night with Houston, it can flip the entire game. And FanDuel lets you jump into that moment with live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly, player props that update as guys heat up, and you can even bet on next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and so much more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, and every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the NFL action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We're discussing some things that drive Fabs crazy, and I want to start with Bijan Robinson here, Fabs, because we had a feeling when Michael Penix went out that this entire offense could kind of crater with Kirk Cousins because he's so unbelievably washed. it's not funny, right? He's so bad. Are we at the point with Bijan that like we have to seriously consider benching him in the fantasy football playoffs?
I don't know if you could do it because I mean he's had some really good games and then he's had some awful games. He had 30 points in week 11, then he had 14 the following week, and then after that he had another 30, and then he had 9.4 against Seattle. Like this is not what we drafted in the top 2, and in some cases number 1 overall. Since week 8, he has scored fewer than 15 fantasy points 4 times in 7 games, including 3 games with fewer than 12 points. I mean,
well, they've got a game against the Rams coming up, I believe, in week 17.
I can't sit Bijan Robinson, but this is again, like, we talked about it. Talent, unquestionable. The team around him, the offense around him, you can question that all day long. Like you said, Kirk Cousins is certainly, washed like so many of those denim jeans we used to wear back in the 80s, right? You're a little too young for that.
Oh, we had stonewashed jeans in the 2000s. Exactly. We're good.
Yeah. Back in the 80s. Come on. You know what I'm talking about. But maybe you don't because you're young. But Bijan's not what we wanted Bijan to be. Like, Bijan this year has not been as good as Bijan last year. Between the inconsistencies, the offense kind of being, less than stellar under Kirk Cousins, I'm going to put that politely. And, oh, by the way, losing goal line work to Tyler Algier. So, I have Bijan in one of my leagues, and I'm going to talk about that league in a second. And it looks like I'm not going to make the playoffs based on points because Bijan killed me yesterday. Jayden Daniels also killed me. But Bijan is a guy that it's like you got to play him because you don't want to miss out on that big pop game. But all of a sudden, his floor is not what we kind of had been used to, and that's a problem.
I want to talk about Michael Wilson really quickly because Marvin Harrison Jr. out of the lineup. Michael Wilson has a massive game. I think the thing we're frustrated about is why not just use Michael Wilson this way all the time?
Exactly.
But here's what I want to ask you. There was a report, and I can't remember who it was from, so I apologize, that there were a couple teams that called the Cardinals about Marvin Harrison Jr. at the trade deadline, and they were told no. But I am wondering going into next offseason if Marvin Harrison Jr. could be a guy that they deal because Michael Wilson is just a better player right now.
It's insane. In 3 games where Marvin Harrison Jr. has not played, listen to these numbers, guys. 36 catches, 445 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 92.5 fantasy points. There are some wide receivers that won't do that in a year. In a year, he did it in 3 games. He's averaging more than 30 points a game. It is awful that when Harrison Jr. comes back, and I don't know what his status is for week 15, but when he does, Michael Wilson goes back in the attic in fantasy because when you look at the splits with Harrison Jr. and without, Michael Wilson is not startable when Marvin Harrison Jr. is active. He hasn't been all year. But when he plays, the damn guy turns into Jerry Rice. And so, number one, not for nothing, and I like Marvin Harrison Jr., but if he doesn't come back this week, I'm not going to be heartbroken because I have some shares of Michael Wilson. And then secondly, we haven't seen this from Harrison Jr. at all.
No,
not at all. In the short period of time he's been in the NFL, he hasn't made that kind of impact that Michael Wilson has. And so in Dynasty, I don't know exactly what I could trade to get Michael Wilson because his value is probably starting to creep up and be a little bit high. Maybe you could, use your salesman pitch and say, well, he's not any good without, unless Marvin Harrison Jr. is out. But I may want to get into the Michael Wilson business here in Dynasty because he is showing that, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Marcus, that he's a better wide receiver right now than Marvin Harrison Jr. Look at the numbers, kids. It is statistically, maybe he's not better athletically. I don't know. I'm not in practices, but he's a better statistical wide receiver than Marvin Harrison Jr. right now.
So, Fabs, you wanted to talk about collusion, but we're going to hold it because I want to give you time to kind of really let this breathe. We're going to do a segment on it later in the week, but I know you had some collusion thoughts. But really quickly before we go, quarterbacks. It was another really weird week for quarterbacks.
I know.
Is it just one of these weeks, one of these years where we're never going to be able to predict which quarterbacks are going to go off and which ones won't?
It is. And listen, I've been doing this for a long time, and I can't remember it being this difficult because of injuries, because of parity, among running backs, because of backfield committees and players who steal red zone opportunities like Tyler Algier, like Zach Charbonnet, who, by the way, that Seahawks backfield yesterday. We told you not to play those guys. But when you get into this sort of scenario where Shedeur Sanders, Aaron Rodgers, and listen, Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Famer. He's not a good fantasy quarterback right now. Tyler Shuck, J.J. McCarthy, who, I loathe as a fantasy quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, Jacoby Brissett, who, again, I told you again, and nobody listens to me, all in the top 12 this week. Who is not in the top 12? Dak Prescott against Detroit, Jared Goff against the Cowboys, Bo Nix against the Raiders, Caleb Williams, okay, I get that one, Baker Mayfield, the Saints defense has been better, Patrick Mahomes, who, listen, guys, he's Clark Kent again. Earlier in the year, he was Superman and the cape was flying and everything was wonderful. He's Clark Kent again. He put the glasses back on and he stinks. And I know the Texans defense is awesome, but when you're an elite level quarterback, you should be able to exploit and do something rather than score next to nothing and throw picks after pick, which Mahomes did in that game last night. And then Jayden Daniels, we were all excited to have him back. He gets hurt again. And oh, by the way, Daniel Jones is now out for the year. You're going to be looking at Riley Leonard as the quarterback for the Colts. And there's a domino effect there, Marcus. And there's a domino effect with the Jets. A.D. Mitchell didn't do anything yesterday because the quarterback situation went into the can with Brady Cook, right? I mean, and Riley Leonard now, I know Pittman had a good game and Alec Pierce had a good game, so maybe it's not as bad. But now you're going into the fantasy playoffs and you may have starting quarterbacks under center who have very little, if any, experience in the NFL. And that's going to make life really difficult when you're trying to set your lineup with a Pittman Jr. Or with an Alec Pierce, for example. It's gotten real tough. And when you've got that number of quarterbacks who shouldn't sniff a starting lineup, putting up those kind of numbers, like Shedeur, like Rodgers, like Shuck, like McCarthy, it just drives you absolutely bananas, man.
All right, that is it for today's show. We would like to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen. Make sure that you subscribe and follow the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Did Locked On Dynasty make your Spotify Wrapped? Prove it on social media to secure a free month of our brand new Everydayer Club. Just tag our national Locked On Podcast Network account on any social platform, and we'll drop you a code. Be one of the first to join the Everydayer Club to get your favorite show ad-free and exclusive access to the members-only Discord. And make sure you check out the Locked On NFL podcast for your second listen of the day. Follow Fabs on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. I'm at Marcus_Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.